Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and in today's video we have got a little bit about what to expect this week. I think it's going to be a big week. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a big week, so I'm going to go through that. A little bit of stock market stuff, a little bit of what the bond market is telling us or hinting at us, a little bit of Bitcoin stuff. I think Bitcoin is about to enter up-only mode, so I'll go through that with you. Bit of Bitcoin adoption as always, and a few charts and live trades and that sort of stuff. So if that sounds interesting to you, then sit back, relax, hit that like button, and let's get into this. First of all, US CPI data is due to be released on January 12th, 2023. So that is this week on Thursday. Can we see a seventh consecutive month where CPI comes in cold, that is to say, lower than the prior month? If you look at the rate of change of M2, that is indeed hinting and suggesting that we have seen the top in CPI, and CPI will indeed come in below the prior month once more. I expect this to be net bullish for the stock market. With CPI coming down, the Fed will have much more credibility, shall we say, in pointing at that and saying their rate hikes have indeed been effective, and perhaps they can start to pivot from a hiking cycle to a pause in rate hikes. This is the main thing that I will be focused on this week, is can CPI confirm or invalidate this? Are we going to follow this melt up thesis? Are we going to start to get very bullish very quickly? Or are we going to come down here and make an equal low or a lower low, dropping into that weekly cycle that we know is due somewhere between February and March? Something else we have to keep an eye on, once we have cleared the CPI hurdle, is the probability for a 25 basis point hike, which is currently sat at 75% in the February Fed meeting. Again, hopping back to this chart here, do we see a 25 basis point hike followed by a pause from the Fed? When the first 5 days of the year are up for the S&P 500, the full year has been positive 83% of the time, with an average annual return of nearly 14%. After just 4 days this year, the S&P 500 was up 1.45%, and after Friday's close, we finished the week up 1.72%. Does this mean there is an 83% likelihood that we will indeed have an up year in 2023 for the stock market? Something needs to change with regard to the put to call ratio. The amount of people shorting this market is off the charts. It's absolutely off the chain. These retail shorts, in my opinion, need to get scorched. They have not been scorched yet. That, of course, remains to be seen. Speaking of retail shorts, the panic and euphoria model from Sentiment Trader is showing that we are at such a severe amount of panic in the markets that we have only seen these levels 5 other times since 1994. What's interesting to me about this is every time we were down at these levels, this corresponded to the bottoms already being in for the S&P 500, and indeed major upside ahead of each one of these bottoms. So the question is this time different, or are we about to start to enter this bullish part of the cycle? Hopping over to bonds, the highest yield on the US Treasury curve is the 6-month T-bill, which currently sits at 4.8%. Remember, this is for a 6-month T-bill. There is no way the Fed is going to 5%. The Fed is not in control. The bond market is in control. I have been saying this for a while. If you've been watching this channel, you will have seen this before. Every time the Fed funds rate crosses above the 2-year yield, historically speaking, the Fed has paused rates before shortly afterwards moving to cutting rates. Is this time different? That, of course, remains to be seen, but the bond market has been calling a Fed bluff for some time now. The bond market is suggesting the Fed is done hiking and is about to pause hiking rates. Here's a question for you. Where was the S&P 500 all of the times when the long-term Treasury, TLT, had a weekly performance over 5%? Here it is for the visual people. You can see each one of these blue vertical lines denotes the time where the TLT had a performance in a week over 5%. And what you saw, as you can see from the S&P 500 chart at the bottom, is this was always a precursor to upside in the stock market. So there is still a lot of work to do. We will find out if we get to accept this blue count and abandon the green one here. Are we going to get rejected at resistance, roll over into that cycle low and then go? Or are we about to go super bullish mode? Are we about to break this trend line before dropping into a cycle low here and then beginning some insane melt up type move? That, of course, remains to be seen. Whether we have to go down first and then come up, or whether we're about to get super bullish, I think the end is near for this bear market, and that 2023 is actually going to shape up to be a year of massive, massive, massive opportunity. From the stock market and bonds to Bitcoin, Bitcoin is also starting to look constructive here. BlackRock is going to add Bitcoin exposure to $15 billion global allocation fund with cash settled futures. So This is good and bad. Okay, this is good because this is adoption. This is the likes of BlackRock adding Bitcoin exposure. But unfortunately, this is cash settled futures we're talking about, not underlying spot buy pressure. But of course, as the likes of BlackRock continue to add Bitcoin exposure, it indeed validates Bitcoin as an asset to the rest of the world. The Prince of Serbia has confirmed he is working on Serbia buying Bitcoin. So again, this is another nation looking to get in on Bitcoin. This is another nation looking to compete on the global stage of Bitcoin adoption. Nations that refuse to do this will simply be left behind. El Salvador, of course, the pioneer in adopting the Bitcoin standard, and of late have come out and said that Bitcoin City will be free of income, property, and capital gains tax. I think what we're seeing here is a sneak preview of what freedom could look like thanks to Bitcoin. Remember, if Bitcoin can hold above this range through January 10th, which is of course tomorrow, then trade above 17k, very strong chance the bear market lows are in. And remember this weird camel on the internet that continuously was saying you might not get your 10, 12, 14k Bitcoin being sidelined, might not be the best strategy in the world? Well, it looks to me like we are currently above 17k for Bitcoin. If you are 100% cash sidelined, this may or may not be the correct strategy. That doesn't mean we could not have a dip. The cycle count suggests that we do indeed have a dip ahead of us, but make sure you are prepared for all outcomes. As I've been saying on this channel, a break above 17.6, and I am long assuming the cycle low is already in. Look at the halving progress. Halving 1 to halving 2. Once 2/3 of this time had elapsed, the Bitcoin lows were already in. Halving 2, once 2/3 of the halving had already elapsed, the lows were already in for the Bitcoin price. And now in the third halving, with 2/3 of the blocks left behind us, it is likely the lows are already in for Bitcoin. Up only mode is likely ahead of us. With the Bitcoin price having been suppressed through a lot of 2022, you can see particularly as we started to get deep down into the depths of the bear market, the prices being this low had forced some of the smaller miners to start to have to sell extra Bitcoin. The miner net position change has been red, meaning the miners have been selling more Bitcoin than they mine since all the way back in September. After the FTX collapse and the price dumped down even further, you can see that this made mining even less sustainable for all of these small miners, which were forced to sell a bunch of Bitcoin into the open market to try to maintain their solvency. Fast forward to today, and not only has this sell side pressure from the miners stopped, but they have flipped to buying more Bitcoin than they mine. This was a nice post from Max Kaiser. This is Bitcoin priced in gold since 2012. And as you can see, it has absolutely smoked the performance of gold. Is it ready to start to make another leg up towards 260 ounces per Bitcoin? That would be a remarkable pile of gold per one Bitcoin. Speaking of gold, China has reported an increase in its gold reserves for a second straight month. So again, I've said this before, there's no space for tribalism, there's no space for Bitcoin or gold. You can absolutely hold both, and that is something that I think is the most prudent for investors this decade. Hopping over to some charts. Is this a triple bottom? Have we got to get a counter trend bounce that we know is overdue for a while? Or was this just getting absolutely slapped back down, ready to start targeting 100 to 102 for the Dixie? The US 2-year yield, as I kind of alluded to earlier, this is calling a Fed bluff. This does not believe the Fed is going to continue to aggressively hike rates. It actually is predicting a pause to come at the next Fed meeting. So that, of course, remains to be seen. The US 10-year yield, strong rejection at resistance here. So looking for this to continue to the downside. Let's get straight into Bitcoin, okay? Look at Bitcoin go, 17,002. Seems to be curling up. Now, it does not mean we could not get a drop down into a cycle low and then go. But remember, I've been saying all along, if we don't get this drop down into this cycle low, and instead we get a break above this blue line, then that is where the long will come from. Certainly seems like that is going to have to be adopted as the strategy, particularly if this continues. Once we get above either one of these levels, once we get over a clear cycle low or a break above that low from Bitcoin, that Bitcoin set back in June here at 17.6, once one of those two conditions is met, I think it might be time to start trading Ethereum. MATIC continues to move back towards break even. So again, MATIC starting to look quite strong in terms of price action. I can just extend this over. So as you can see, a little bit below break even, If it wasn't for this whole FTX saga, I think this would have been a market leader for sure. Is it going to continue to lead? If so, we want to let it lead. Zcash as well. This, again, look, right back above break even. So to me, this is a market leader as well. Is Zcash going to continue to lead? I know some other altcoins like Litecoin. Let's have a quick look at Litecoin, even though I don't have any of this or don't trade it. Again, look, you can see Litecoin continuing to be a leader. So this is pretty good. This is a good sign for things to come for Bitcoin, in my opinion. As always, though, this channel is not about trading altcoins. This channel is about the king of all cryptos. This is about Bitcoin. I only trade a couple of these other cryptos, and I hold Zcash for the long term, as stated here. Gold extending gains even further. So I like the look of what I'm seeing here from gold. Is it due a drop into a cycle low sometime in the near future? I would think so. But I think all the time we're above this, then no problem in pushing this trade. A back test of perhaps this level and this consolidation sort of area here would make perfect sense in my opinion. That of course remains to be seen. Silver, given I took the profit on breakdown of this trend line, is this going to now roll over and have a good shakeout sort of move down? I would actually, of course, having sold this, having got out of this position, I would love to see some sort of dip down before we can go again. That, of course, remains to be seen. Of course, as I keep saying over and over again, if, however, we sort of trade around this box and then break out, what on earth is that? If we chop around in this box and break out from here, then the trigger for the long and the re-entry will come from a breakout above this box. Miners starting to push away now. You'd expect that to follow through given the price action of gold, and the same is true of the junior miners. So I'm expecting more upside from both of these. Looking to get long Riot, given where Bitcoin is today, given that Bitcoin is making its way higher, making its way up towards that low from the summer of $17,600. I would think this is going to continue. So if I can get in nice and tight here, I will. I'll put some leverage on and happy days. If it starts to work its way up, if it opens up near this purple trend line, then I think the strategy would be to wait for a break of the purple trend line and tolerate a wider position. So it really depends. Is it going to open here and let me in nice and tight down the bottom? Is this going to be an opportunity that I can get into today? Or, like I said, is this going to gap up into resistance, in which case we don't go long at resistance. We wait for a break of resistance to go long, or some sort of retest of this one. So we'll see how gifted this position gets today. Like I said, if it opens in and around 4.28, then this will be a long for me with a stop down here. But like I said, if it gaps up into resistance, then we might have to play a tiny bit more patient on this trade. UK 100, FTSE 100 seems to have broken out, looking for a retest of these highs, I would think, before hopefully a resumption higher. So nothing much I can do about this apart from say long and strong and continue to push. I'm noticing a whole lot of nothing from the VIX, so I'll continue to hold this as insurance. We'll see what happens. I would think if this does get stopped out, it'll be a result of the stock market firing higher. So that, of course, remains to be seen. We're in UK time here. It's not even 11 in the morning yet, UK time. So the stock market in America doesn't open for over 3 hours just yet. Given this close on Friday, this strong push up here, I'm looking for a resumption higher. But of course, we have to be open to the fact that we could, of course, see a little bit of a resumption higher followed by a drop into a cycle low that then ends up resolving to the upside. So I think the end to this bear market is close. Whether it undergoes a rejection at resistance followed by a bounce from down here, or whether we are going to break out of this trend line and look to move higher before dropping into a cycle low that forms much higher up, I still think we're pretty close to seeing the end of this bear market. Taking a quick look at the NASDAQ in case anyone's interested. Again, as I've said before, as I've lined this position up here, I'm not really interested in the NASDAQ until we can get above this downward sloping red resistance line. But a trend line break of that, and you will see me go long and strong and look for some massive sort of upside rally to unfold. So as ever, one day at a time, keeping full focus and full watch over the CPI data that's due on Thursday. That will be very market moving in my opinion. Once the dust has settled from the CPI, I think it will be time to start focusing on whether or not we can get this 25 basis point hike or a pause from the Fed at the February meeting. In the meantime, it looks to me like Bitcoin is ready to either find a cycle low or break out above 17.6. So whichever one comes first, I have no preference. I think it's going to start to get very, very bullish very, very quickly. I think the stock market has the potential, whether it's got to drop down into one more low or not, I think it has the potential to actually say goodbye to this bear market of 2022 and start to go into a bullish cycle for 2023. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, particularly with precious metals also presenting the sorts of opportunities that they are presenting. If you found value here today, I'd appreciate it if you could drop a like on the video. Subscribe if you're not already. Thank you to the 500 subscribers. We've now crossed that milestone, so happy days. I'm really, really happy with that, so thank you to all of you. Turn those notifications on if you want to continue to get updated on my trades and any modifications I make to any positions, be it opening new ones or closing existing ones. In the meantime, look after yourselves. Take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.